back to my channel. I'm Deanna and you're watching Orchid. So I've got some notes with me today and I'm going to be answering some questions from an orchid tag. So Annabel Melton has the YouTube channel The Orchid Room, has tagged me, and I will put a link to her channel down below if you want to check her out. But basically the orchid tag is a set of questions that were created and went around a few years ago, and orchid YouTubers answered the questions and it was a lot of fun. But it was about 3 or 4 years ago and it was before my YouTube times, so I haven't answered these questions before. There's quite a few questions and I don't make the briefest of videos as it is, so you guys might want to grab a coffee and a comfy seat before this video gets going. There's obviously a few questions that are a little bit personal, and I talk a little bit about other things in my life as well. So this is just a pre-warning. You don't have to watch if you don't want to, but yeah, it's just a little bit about me and about my history with growing orchids. So if you want to stick around, please do, and let's get started. So question number 1, which part of the world are you growing your orchids in? I live in Brisbane, Australia, which is in the state of Queensland. So Queensland is known as the Sunshine State, and our ad campaign basically says beautiful one day, perfect the next. So as the name suggests, we have a lot of sun, and I googled it and we have a whopping 283 average days of sunshine a year, which I think is a lot. It's basically a subtropical region, which means we do still have cool winters, but the minimum, like absolute minimum, stays around 5 to 10 degrees Celsius during winter, and our winters last for max maybe 3 months. However, our summers last about 6 months. Our hottest months would be December, January and February, where it can get as extreme as about 40 degrees Celsius, but more on average the highs are like 32 to 36 degrees Celsius around that time of year. So it's quite a hot, humid place to live. So Brisbane is located in the southeast corner of the state, and if I can find a map and make it work, I will put it up on the screen. But basically we're coastal and we're about halfway between the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. However, we are slightly inland. So it does mean that we have reasonable humidity. The humidity usually stays above 50%, often like around the 80% mark. But the country itself, like Australia, goes through these significant periods of drought, and we also get periods of seasonal torrential rain, although that hasn't happened this year. And my feeling is that actually this year we have had particularly low average rainfall. It seems to be a bit all or nothing. Like June we had weeks of non-stop rain, and the last 2 months we've had like maybe 2 days of like very light showers. But overall I feel quite lucky because this climate does allow easy growing of most of the common orchid genres, and it is also just a really nice place to live. Like it's easy to enjoy outdoor activities pretty much all year round. Question number 2. How long have you been growing orchids, and can you remember first orchid, and is it still alive? No, I totally killed my first orchid. So I got my first orchid around 4 years ago, and it was the usual foul gift from my friends when I lived at my old house. And basically it bloomed, it was lovely for a while, and I promptly killed it. And a few months later I did buy some more mini phals from just a little flower shop, and they're actually still alive. I'll show them to you. So I just realised that I've only got 2 of them left. One of them I actually gave to my mother-in-law last year for helping me look after some of my orchids while I went away, but this is one of them, and she was actually not quite in bud in my last orchids in bloom, but she's a little tropical looking one. And the other mini phal is this one, a little pretty pink one. And actually I do have pictures from my mother-in-law of the third one, and it's currently in bloom. Actually she's doing really well with it, and it's grown cakey and stuff. So yeah, they're all still alive. So that was about maybe 3.5 years ago, and then my grandma gave me a few orchids from her collection because she's in her 90s and she's starting to wind down. And then 2 years ago we moved to this house that we're in now, and that's kind of when the orchid bug bit me. So My mum and my auntie gave me a few housewarming orchids, and my grandma also gave me more of her orchids, but they were a little bit sick, so that led to me looking into a bit more about their care. So I started reading more, looking online, and that's when I started watching YouTube videos as well. So beginning of 2018, I went to my first orchid shows and I started buying some orchids online. And basically within a year my collection grew significantly. I guess also like Annabel, and if you haven't seen her orchid tag video, please do so. My love of the hobby kind of stemmed from trying to find a bit of a work-life balance. So I've been a doctor since 2009. I became qualified as an anaesthetist in 2017, and I guess that's when my overall responsibility and after hours workload just blew up. So I ended up finding the orchid hobby a really good escape and a really good way to sort of temper the stress of my job, essentially. Question number 3. Do you actually know how many orchids you have? Yes, I counted them for this video. I have an app that I track all the orchids on called Orchid Sense. It's a good app, but not the best because I still had to manually count all the bloody orchids, and I have exactly 300 orchids. Don't tell Jared. Question number 4. What kind of growing space do you have? So I might take you guys on a little tour. I have several grow spaces, as you might know, and these spaces are constantly evolving over the last 2 years that I've been in this house. But I'll combine this question with the next question, which is how many different types or genre of orchids do you grow and what are they? So let's do a really quick tour and a really quick overview of what orchids I have. So you guys will be quite familiar with this room down here. This is my phal grow space. So this is a constant room where I keep my phals all year round. It is a big south-facing window that I put them up against. Basically that means they get pretty good light in summer. Not a whole lot of direct light, but a little bit in the morning. This winter I have set up some grow lights for them as well. The other things I have in here are some random bulbophyllums. I have really one random Cloecia here, which is in spike, and those down there are all phal seedlings. So upstairs we actually have 2 grow spaces. One of them only gets utilised in summer, but this is my western facing grow space and it gets utilised all year round. You can see that big window, so I get a lot of afternoon sun through there and it gets a nice breeze often. But basically in winter I keep warmer growers in here, and then in summer it actually gets quite warm up here, so I put the warm growers that don't need a huge amount of light up here. But let's have a really quick look at what we've got. We've got the species phals up here. On this rack we've got dendrobiums and oncidiums. We've got a random bulbophyllum there, dens, paphs and oncidiums on that bottom shelf. Down here we've got some random seedlings, but nothing we haven't mentioned before. We've got catasedums, but I did do a recent video on potting them all up for the new growing season, and the rest of them are actually downstairs. I won't bother showing them to you because I haven't begun watering them yet. We've got mottled paphs down here, and we've got some dendrobiums. We've got that dendrochilum that I recently got, and a random gongora up here. Along these shelves we've got my Wanagara apple blossom, very proud of her. Cattleya, we've got a bulbophyllum, a psychopsis, some oncidiums, and that's it up here. So this is my balcony grow space, and last summer I used it for my Cattleya, oncidiums and denphals, and they loved it. Basically there's just really good light up here because it's open on all 3 sides. However, because it's got a roof over the top, it doesn't get like direct midday sun or anything. In winter it's just a bit too cold and windy up here for anything, so you can see how dusty it is at the moment. I haven't been using it, but come summer and the warmer months I will be setting up again here. So downstairs I've got my back deck grow vase, and I get lots of winter light here, but it can often be too much, and sometimes the direct sun on a warmer day can burn these plants. So I have these shades down today. I did buy grow lights earlier this winter and I've been very impressed with them. So this will allow me to use the space a lot more in summer when the sun's on the other side of the house. My RO unit's also down here, so it's actually a really convenient spot. It's well protected from really strong winds, and it still gets a really good day-night temperature difference, which I think the orchids really like. So let's go around and do a quick walkthrough of what we've got. I've got Vandas, I've got a Gongora there, I've got Rhynchus stylus, Renanthera, Stanhopea. I've got lots of Dendrobiums, Dendrobium nobile types, Phalaenopsis types. I've got Latoria type up there, got Tolumnias, Sarcochilus. Over here we have some Epidendrums, got Hoyas and other non-orchid plants, Coleogyne, Brassia, got Oncidiums, Encyclia. I've got over here Zygopetalums, Brassivola and Maxillaria. I've got, they're all cats up there. I've got the Miltoniopsis, which are surprisingly still alive, Paphiopedilums, and I think that's it. Neophoenicias. Oh, I've got a whole new grow area I have to show you that I'm experimenting with as well. So this is an area I'm experimenting with, and I have actually filmed an update, which I'll probably end up posting before this video anyway. So yeah, this was the section where I dumped the orchids that were causing me too much trouble. But I have actually ended up putting some Vandas and Cattleyas out here to get more light, and I'm experimenting and I'm seeing how they go. So yeah, I guess this counts kind of as a grow space now too. And that's it for my grow spaces and my orchid collections. So let's move on to the next question. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed that tour. I tried to make it as brief as possible, but I'm really bad at making stuff brief. So back to the questions, but question number 7 is, what would be the one thing that you could say was a pet peeve or your top orchid gripe? So I suppose this is where my personal opinions will come in, and not everyone's going to agree, but I'm just going to say them anyway. I personally hate it when people get caught up on little things, to the point where they pull joy out of the orchid hobby. I recently had someone comment on one of my videos, and they have since deleted it, but it said something like, "Nothing grinds my gears more than people who call their orchids he or she," and like it really worked them up, and you know, they couldn't look past stuff like that. So I think I basically replied something like, I think there are way worse things in life to get wound up about, and like seriously, who cares? Who cares what people call their orchids? Like it's their plants, let them call them what they want. I'm also part of this Facebook group called Orchidaholics Anonymous, and there's been some bullying and people who just pick arguments and troll over the most trivial things. I mean, honestly, I have no time for that bullshit. Like, they're orchids. Why would you pick a fight about an orchid? Yeah, you know, I just don't think there's any place in this world for bullying or trolling or just generally making other people feel bad and rotten over trivial things. Like, no, I don't stand for that stuff. So we'll move on, shall we? Question number 8. What are your favourite places to buy orchids, or your least favourite? Well, you guys know that eBay has caused me my fair share of grief this year. So I'm extremely wary of it now. However, every now and again I guess you do get lucky and you find some real gems on there, but at the moment it's probably my least favourite place. So locally I like to get my flowering plants from orchid shows and local nurseries, one in particular called Fame Orchids, but the downside to shows especially is that you're never quite sure what's in the pot. And there's no such thing as complaints or refunds, so you really got to check the orchids well before you buy them. Online, I have a lot of nurseries that I personally like to deal with, but I guess my favourite one would definitely be Robertson Orchids. So they are located in southeast Queensland, so the shipping time is really, really quick, and John is just really a pleasure to deal with. So yeah, that's my favourite place. Question number 9. What is the worst orchid advice you've ever been given? Like Annabel, I would say that I haven't received a whole lot of orchid advice as such, but I do read a lot and I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I would say that the one piece of advice that's really bad for beginners especially is the advice of just watering once a week or just watering twice a week. This is exactly how I killed my very first orchid, of course in retrospect, but I watered it once a week and it was in sphagnum. I never checked if it was dry or not. I didn't really think about it or know how, and it rotted off the roots and it died. So yeah, I think with experience you start to realize that it's really about getting to know the individual orchids and reading them and adjusting things to suit their needs, or at least trying to reach a compromise between what they need and what you can provide them. Alright guys, we're nearly there, 3 more questions to go, and I have no idea how long this video is going to be, so I'm sorry if it's like really ridiculously long. But question number 10 is, out of the orchids you own, which are your 5 favourite orchids? So I made a list and it was really, really hard to pick 5. Number 5 is the Laelia purpurata. So I just love everything about the Laelia purpuratas. I love the variety of the different colours and flowers you can get, but they're spring bloomers, they have wonderful fragrances, and the only thing I'll say is that they're not the easiest plants and I'm still trying to figure them out, but the reward is definitely worth it. Number 4, Phalaenopsis bellina. She's just the cutest little baby and I've had her since I was a seedling, and she bloomed for me last year and it was just wonderful. So not only is she absolutely stunning and beautiful, that contrast of colours, but has an absolutely wonderful fragrance. And again, I don't think the summer bloomers are anywhere near as easy as the complex hybrids for me personally. So it was really, really rewarding. Number 2 is a Vanda type, and it is Aerides hulesiana. I know there's different varieties, but mine has this bluey purple colour and it contrasts with this just bright yellow, and the shape, the colour, it's completely stunning. But the thing that will knock your socks off is the fragrance. This must be one of the strongest fragrances in my collection. It's this citrusy, really, really pleasant fragrance and I love it. It is right up there as one of my favourite fragrances, and that's why it gets second place. So number 1, I feel like there should be a drum roll or something. Number 1 is of course the Oncidium Sharry baby. So this plant is just so rewarding. I got it at the beginning of last year. It was one of those, the first ones that I got from those orchid shows, and it's just super easy to grow. It's really resilient, amazing, vigorous. It basically doubles in size annually, and to top it all off, it smells just like my favourite food group, chocolate. Yes, chocolate is totally a food group. So they're my top 5, but I do have several runners up. In fact, if you want me to do like a top 10 favourite orchids video, I'm more than happy to do so, and I can go in a little bit more depth about why they are my favourites. So just let me know in the comment section down below. Question number 11. Have you got an orchid related story? So yes, kind of. It's more like something that happens really regularly, but if I have a really long day at work, Jared's often home before me and he'll get started on dinner. So when I come in, I'll just say that I'm going upstairs to have a shower and I'll be right back down. Anyway, on the way to the bedroom, to the bathroom, there's 2 grow spaces that I have to pass. So before I even get to the stairs, I have to pass this foul grow space. And it always sucks me in, and I end up spending half an hour just looking at each plant, seeing what's going on. Are there new roots? Are there new leaves? And then half an hour will pass and I'll slap myself and say, Deanna, you're on a mission, you have to go have a shower. And so I'll just remind Jared that yes, I'm still on my way to have a shower. Then at the top of the stairs, there's another grow space. So I get sucked in again and I end up checking every plant to see if there's spikes or new leaves or growths or whatever. And before I know it, Jared tells me that dinner's ready and I never even made it to the bedroom. Oops. So yeah, that's my orchid story. I guess that's just the way orchids help me to de-stress and unwind after a long day. But yeah, I also have to remind myself that I probably don't smell that great after working all day, so the shower is also quite important. So the very last question is, what advice would you give someone who's about to start growing orchids or start building a collection? So I suppose I have a couple of pieces of advice. One is that I think that I am reaching the brink of too many orchids. So I would implore you guys to go slower than me. I also suggest not buying too many seedlings in your first few years. I sort of regret all the seedlings and young plants that I've bought because they are years and years away from flowering, and so what can I do now? I just have to continue to look after them until they get to blooming size. So the other advice that I have for beginners, and this is really just more on, I guess, my experience, but I definitely feel that a major turning point for me in terms of like the success of my orchid growing was the introduction of RO water, and with that came along with TDS monitoring and pH adjusting my fertilizing solution. So I really feel that this was a milestone for me, and within months I was seeing improvements in growth, in root production, in the general health of my plants. So of course this is all anecdotal, I suppose, but personally believe that it's the difference between like okay results and amazing results. So I'm just putting that out there. Alright everyone, I wanted to finish this video off by showing you my Wanakara apple blossom who just opened its first flower today. I want to thank Annabel for tagging me in this orchid tag, and I want to thank all of you guys for sticking around if you did and made it to the end of this video. And before I go, I wanted to tag the next person in this orchid tag. So I'd like to tag Stephen Van Campen Lewis. So Stephen grows mostly catasetums and cattleya in Texas over in the States, and he's put out a few videos now on care of those orchids, and I've really enjoyed them and I've gotten a lot out of them. So I'd love to hear Stephen's story and his answers to these questions. So everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more orchid videos. I hope you guys have a great week and happy growing until I see you next time. Bye!